What is up, everybody? What is up? LSU Odyssey in the house. How are you all doing? 7 days. 7 days away. 7 days, y'all, from LSU kicking it off against Clemson. And I don't know about you, but already having football in the air, already having this vibe of pigskinacity, just the taste of the leather, the tackling, the endless commercials, the fried food going down the gullet, alcoholic beverages before noon. Like all of these things we have missed all year long. But now, just like the winds of change, they have returned. And we are back in college football season. Football season in general, really like sports season in general. If you're a super, I like to call it football as well, but it's soccer, just to differentiate. But we've got soccer, and we've got NFL football, and we've got college football all going at the same time. It's absolutely delirious. It's absolutely nuts. But what matters is that LSU kickoff. I know there's some big games today. We'll talk about all that and stuff. But LSU kickoff 7 days from literally like right now. They will be kicking off against Clemson, at Clemson, in the fake Death Valley. What a game this is going to be. What a moment this is going to be for Brian Kelly's entire tenure at LSU. Like, this is kind of the axis on maybe where it all, hinges. I hate to say that, but I'm kind of feeling that that's where this is going. Not just like, hey, this is a must win, but like at least a must performance. And we'll get into that because that's the first game, of course, that we're going to cover. We are very organized. We are very on our shit for this game. Sage is with his mama. We are dialed in. We don't have any, crazy random distractions. So sit back with us. Get your favorite beverage. Get your favorite booze. Get your favorite, drugs if that's what you're into. But definitely be careful, and definitely keep an eye, maybe if you want, on the football game. I think it's Auburn Baylor that's going on right now. Whatever you want to do. But definitely join with us for the next little bit as we go into what should be an absolute roller coaster of a season for LSU football. We're talking, I'm going to get into certain reasons why we picked the way we did. But for despite certain reasons, certain takes of mine on the schedule, like this is a brutal schedule at different points in times. LSU are basically gonna have to play and go through the gauntlet to win a national championship, to even compete for a national championship, to get to that college football playoff, which is the benchmark, right? That's the benchmark for Brian Kelly and this team is to get to the playoff. I don't feel like that. I know that's what a lot of people are saying, and I think that's almost a cop-out. LSU should be in a 12-team playoff. Maybe not every year, but at least like 4 out of 5 years, right? LSU should be there. And I think just giving Brian Kelly this aim of, well, you got to be one of the 12, and then the second we get there, we just go and just collapse like, John Candy walking to the corner store. Circa 1990 or something, like that's not what we want from our LSU Tigers. Is to literally just go and then just get destroyed by some team in the 12-team playoff the second we get there. This is a team that should be capable of going on a run. This team should be capable of going on a deep run at least. I mean, we're gonna get into how deep of a run I believe, but first I wanted to get into something. First off, thank you to my man Harold Hibbard. What a dude! I mean, this guy literally. I can't believe you, man. You got me these amazing LSU shoes. These amazing LSU Tiger purple shoes. Oh my God, they look glorious. Just look absolutely fantastic. And it's hilarious. The second we were trying to put those things on, Sages, I want to wear them. I want to wear them. It was absolutely hilarious. He wanted to put those things on so bad. We wore him to the store. Walking in there this morning, just felt like, I wish LSU were playing today. But with some of the injuries, Aaron Anderson, we kind of don't know where his availability is. It looks like he should be good, but how many of those competitive reps did he actually play in 7v7, 11v11? How much is he going to be in the scrimmage tonight? They might just hold him out of the damn thing. So I mean, it's all up in the air with a guy like Aaron Anderson, as far as like not saying his availability, but at least having a big impact on the game. We got to see him on the field. We've got to see him on the freaking field. I just really want a big shout out to Harold Hibbard, my man, for sending those shoes. That is incredible of you. That was absolutely awesome. I really appreciate those shoes, man. They look incredibly killer. Thank you so much, brother. And also, happy birthday weekend to Peggy. Miss Peggy. Miss Peggy, it is her birthday. Yeah, it was her birthday, I believe, yesterday. And I saw a lot of people wishing her a happy birthday. LSU super fan. Big shout out to Miss Peggy. Absolute happy birthday. And what's great is when you have a birthday on a Friday, on a Saturday, it's basically like a birthday weekend. It's all perfect. And the college football vibes are in the air, but it's also that kind of like last weekend that's free, where there's games, there's some stuff going on, but are you gonna really like shun your family to watch some of the games that are on today, like I have to watch Auburn, Baylor, whatever. It's kind of no. Next week is gonna be the games that are like everybody gather around. It is time. Like this is football time. It is back. It's going to be very cool to see my son watching games and hopefully be able to take him to a few before the season is up and kind of see his little mind get into football. He's loving college football, and so it's very cool. He's always saying he wants to watch the LSU Tigers, and he loves seeing the LSU logo and purple and gold, and I want to watch LSU. And then he sees some guy tackle, and then he tries to start tackling me. It's absolutely hilarious. Now we get into it. Okay. Now we get into it. We predicted LSU's season the other day in an article, a lengthy article, game by game article that you can find on LSUODYSSEY.com. We'll put that link in the comments section right now. Let's see here. Hefty article. And this one took a little bit more time than I expected. There was some things about this season and predicting this season that were quite difficult because unlike other seasons where maybe, okay, I know this quarterback's returning, this team has this great defense, this team is in this kind of ascension, this program is going to in this direction. This season has so many different players who are now, are going to have to be big on the scene. And a lot of guys that are being tipped for huge success that we haven't really seen do anything on any level whatsoever yet. And so there's a hell of a lot of faith that a lot of fan bases are placing in a lot of guys. And it's a really interesting time. There's a lot of coaches on hot seats, and it's going to be a wild season. I think this is going to be one of, if not the most unpredictable LSU Tiger seasons, college football seasons as well, I should just say, in general. One of the wildest and most unpredictable college football seasons we've seen in some time. And, I'm talking like 2007 type of vibes. And yes, there's been some craziness in the last few years. There's been some real wild outcomes. But seasons like 2007, which profited LSU, of course, we just haven't seen something really quite on par with that since, even though we've seen some crazy years, and the last few years had some unfreaking real moments. But I could see this year be even wilder. I mean, you had the first game of the season in Dublin, Iowa State, Kansas State, a top 25 matchup, both teams, and it comes down to that final play, 24-21. It's already started off in that vibe where you're going to see, oh my God, Alabama's in the ascension. They just killed Texas, or they just beat Georgia, whoever the hell's on this. And then the next second they get humbled by some team that you just have no clue was coming, like Vanderbilt last year. There's going to be these moments this season where you're going to see teams you do not expect to lose at the most outrageous of times. Like how the hell did that come about? How the hell did that even happen? There's so many different starting quarterbacks across not only the SEC, but the entire nexus of the top 25. It's insane. I mean, you're hearing everyone from the Heisman from John Mateer clear to, Garrett Nussmeier, of course, being mentioned, but then you've got a lot of Arch Manning people. It's all over the place this season. Absolutely freaking all over the place as far as who's going to be there at the end of this season. Who's going to be there in Miami in that title game, hoisting that trophy. And the reason I made these picks, we're going to get into like a top 5 reasons why I made these picks like immediately after we get into them, because I'm sure there's going to be a lot of questions as, dude, why did you do this to yourself? What are you doing? Because I'm going to tell you straight up right now. The furthest I've had LSU predicted in all of our times predicting seasons, we didn't do this the first season of coverage. We jumped into actually writing about LSU halfway through the 2018 season. And so the first season we did predictions was 2019. And I was just a young gun and just being an idiot and just being like high on Joe Burrow. loving his long hair. Was surprised he cut his long hair. I remember that too. And just loving the offensive fireworks that ended the season. I know people think of the end of the 2018 season being that 28-0 Alabama loss, but really the end of that season there was 4 straight games where LSU put up over 40 points and just absolutely had some offensive fireworks there. And so that was the season where I said, you know what, LSU are going to win a national championship. Boom. And I predicted LSU would win a national championship. I predicted Joe Burrow would win the Heisman. A lot of people were saying Tua, Alabama, and it all came down to that game. Fine margins in this sport. If Clyde Edwards-Helaire does not reach back on 3rd and 10, LSU only up 6 points, 33-27. It's 3rd and 10. LSU are in a slump. If Clyde doesn't reach back and make that grab and then make 3 dudes miss on his way, trucking them, juking them, barely getting away from their grasp to get the first down, and then LSU puts him away. Like that, who knows what goes on? LSU obviously get into the college football playoff at some point and probably take care of business in the end, that 2019 team, even had we lost that game. But I'm just saying that the margins are so fine in this sport. And we're going to show you exactly how fine they are with these predictions, because if you didn't want to go through the trouble of reading the article, which it's pretty long, and I get it, you can skip ahead to the predictions and all that stuff, but we wanted to do kind of a version where we take you through it game by game ourselves, and kind of an extra kind of dose where we're giving you exactly what you'll probably get in the article times 10, because it's our voice, and we're going to always add different things to it. We're never just going to read something as a script. And so really more the article is a guide to kind of keep our wandering madness kind of on track. So thank you for joining us. We see that the audience is building and building and building with each second. Thank you guys for coming in and hanging out with us while we do this, because this is crazy. We like I just was saying, we predicted LSU to win the championship in 2019. That's the furthest that's the only time we've done that. 2020, I think we predicted a 9 or 10 win season and a New Year's Six bowl. We had we thought we were going to be a high flying offense, but we didn't think we'd be too good on defense. We'd be okay on defense. I didn't expect how bad it would be, of course. I expected that to be a 9-10 win team just because of guys like Terrace Marshall, Booty, Eric Gilbert. I expected that to be just a freak show offense, and Miles Brennan to put up yards and points, which he was doing until his injury, of course. 2021, I predicted that to be a bad season. It was. 2022, I'm trying to think of what I predicted in 2022. I think I predicted probably us to get into like the Final Four and then lose in the semifinals or something like that. Which is crazy because we actually made an SEC championship game that year, which is in line with the predictions. But and I know for a fact I predicted us to beat Alabama that year. Usually I am picking us to beat Alabama. It's hard for me to pick against us and pick Alabama, but I do it when I really feel that's the way to go. So these picks are not biased. These picks we've been making year to year have never been emotional. We never let ourselves like get way in. This team is gonna, this team has stole my heartstrings. Even if I know, 90% of the team, even if I talk to 90% of the team, we are going to tell it like we see it. And I mean, I even had people freaking out at me. Why did you pick LSU to have a 8-win season in 2021? They're like freaking out at me. Like, how could you? And like, some players, family members who I won't speak of, like name wise, but they were really, really angry with me for making that pick. But regardless, we're going to make the pick how we see it. And so with that, we're just going to go into it and we're going to explain exactly why after the fact. The time is now. Any questions before we start? Anybody? Any questions? Any questions? All right, let's just begin. We've got quite the audience here on Twitter, on YouTube, on LSUODYSSEY.com live. Definitely support, if you want to support this show the most, definitely watch this show on LSUODYSSEY.com through that link. Just the YouTube's right there. It's very easy to do. Very easy to help us out. Thank you so much. Just hit a like, hit a subscribe button. It's very easy to do, and it helps us out so much. Especially if you're watching this, if you're getting something out of this, if you're enjoying it, if you actually are somewhat regular, in any way, shape, or form, a like, subscribe, be absolutely amazing. LSU start the season against Clemson, at Clemson, okay? And we've gone into this game at length, LSU Clemson. We've gone into this game at length. LSU Clemson, we have gone into, some type of sphincter operation. We have gone deep, okay? We've gone deep on this game. We did an hour and a half show, a preview show just a few other days ago, and then a major lengthy article that's probably 3 times the size of the piece that you get in the predictions article on the game. It's way more in depth on the game, but we predicted the LSU Clemson game to be won by the more physical defense, the crisper special teams, the better special teams. And I really have a feeling Amon Anand has really settled that group. And I feel like LSU has an advantage there that's not really being spoken about. And I'm not saying let's win a field goal contest. Yeah, let's win a field goal contest. I'm saying let's really see how Aaron Burrell could dominate a game. Touchback after touchback after touchback, never allowing anybody to return anything. Can Damian Ramos and Aaron Burrell maybe pair up where Damian Ramos is money from short yardage, Aaron Burrell is money from deep, and hit some field goals, some timely field goals when we absolutely have to have them? Let's hope, and let's hope we see a way better special teams performance than we've seen in most week ones in the recent past from LSU. And I feel like the offense that also finishes inside that red zone. But also, those are kind of obvious ones. I think it's really about the luckier squad here, which is why I believe LSU will defeat Clemson 38-34. I think they're going to beat a very talented Clemson team. I am worried. I am freaking petrified about the offensive line. But at other times, I can see kind of some light at the end of this really dark tunnel when you think of the offensive line, where Brad Davis' starting 5 may not be perfect. They not be anywhere close to Joe Moore Award, that type of stuff. But with who we have, how many years some of these guys have been around. Tyree Adams, this is what, year 3 that he's going into? Yeah. He hasn't started too many games, but he's been in playing college football enough that he should be able to hold his own at left tackle. Brian Kelly seemed fine with him at left tackle and seemed like, yep, protecting Nuss's blind side is no issue. We're good with Tyree Adams. I'm going to take Brian Kelly's word for it, right? He said right tackle, Weston Davis. We're all good with Weston Davis. And then next thing you know, Carius Kern was in there getting reps. So it was like, what's going on here, Kelly? Are we experimenting? Are we worried about some different guys? We don't think certain guys can really deliver. What's going on here? And so we openly question some of that stuff. But I really am worried about this game and how it can physically affect this team, and how maybe this offensive line fail to impose themselves, fail to really, get a push up front, fail to have a running game, and then fail to protect Nuss because of that overwhelming pressure. And then Nuss gets hurt because of this, you know, domino effect of crap, which is usually what happens to your quarterbacks. And to avoid all of that, I think their deficiencies can really be overcome if Joe Sloan just calls a quick, striking, fast-tempoed offensive, where you just literally snap the football and just release this thing. Snap the football, throw this damn thing. Quick slants over the middle. Aaron Anderson, Nick Anderson, Barian Brown, Xavier Thomas. Use all the speed we have. Burn this defense left, right, center. Make it so the defensive tackles, the defensive ends are having to run 20, 30 yards down the field to help their teammates to get a guy to the damn ground. You know what I'm saying? And then you can really start to actually run the football. And then your offensive line may have a chance. And then you can maybe get a foothold running the football with a guy like Caden Durham being so creative at making guys miss, breaking tackles. It's not like he needs an offensive line to really give him a gold carpet, a red carpet to the freaking end zone. He can make guys miss, make guys, juke guys out of their freaking socks. And especially if we can start running that counter, and we can perfect the counter and the misdirection runs, we can utilize maybe this offensive line's athleticism over maybe what they lack in 1v1 blocking, and kind of flip the script on this Clemson defensive line. I think then LSU has an opportunity to win this game. I don't think LSU are going to play very well. I don't think they're going to really wow you. I think they're going to be ready to play. I think the defense is going to have a better game than that scoreline looks. But by virtue of a wasteful offense that has frequent opportunities, Clemson are going to stay in this game, even though LSU are going to have a double-digit lead at one point. And they're going to make this a game deep into the game where LSU have to get a clutch defensive stop to finish this thing off. I think you're going to see some real strong games from some of the usual suspects from LSU to really drag this team over the line in this one. I think you're going to have a great game from Garrett Nussmeier. I think he's going to get the crap knocked out of him on a few occasions. And I think this offensive line are going to have a lot of issues. And I think our secondary are going to have some issues against Bryant Wesco and Aaron Williams. I think those guys can absolutely give our secondary trouble. As good as our secondary looks on paper, I think they can be had at first by a really damn good receiving core, which is what these guys are. And it's up to Blake Baker, Jake Olson, and especially Corey Raymond to make those adjustments when when there's trouble early on in this game, because that's what's going to happen. Is both teams are going to take punches, both teams are going to get punched, both teams are going to have to punch. It's going to be just wham bam, and then suddenly it's going to be a thank you ma'am at some point, and someone's going to win this game. And I think it's going to be LSU, despite a lot of people picking Clemson. I think Clemson are actually going to be a little bit overrated here. And I think Clemson, people there's so many first-round picks and first-round talent. There's so much, but I think that's a bit overrated as well. I think that's a bit overspoken as well. I think Clemson have some great players. And I think that's like guys like Bryant Wesco, who aren't really being talked about. And yes, their defensive line is freakish. And Sammy Morris is a great linebacker. Other than that, their linebackers, their safeties, LSU can go at those guys, attack them day until night, throwing the football to Caden Durham out of the backfield with some swing pass action. Absolutely kill this defense doing that. So if the point I'm trying to make is here is I just want to see this offensive line be able to give Garrett Nussmeier and Joe Sloan options. And I want to see LSU and offensively maybe go air raid style with this passing attack and just gas this Clemson defense until you can run the football. Pass to run here, baby. And when you start having success running the football, you need to be patient with it and not go away. And I think you're going to see Joe Sloan do that when you see some Jawan Johnson, some Harlem Berry, some Caleb Jackson, all following with Caden Durham. And I think it's going to be an effective enough running game, more so than Clemson's. Gideon Davidson could really hurt LSU defensively. And maybe the freshman goes off, Gideon Davidson, in this game against LSU. But a freshman in his first game, Walker Parks, if he's going to play, he's going to be at like 60%. And he's Clemson's best offensive lineman. And I think LSU's defensive line are overlooked in this situation and can absolutely bully some of those Clemson offensive line. So I believe LSU are going to be lucky, though, in an absolute just street fight slugfest, kind of on the cusp of being technically a shootout, 38-34. LSU get the job done thanks to some big performances across the board. Really a great team win, but like a survival as well. Not just a victory, but really a freaking survival. Next, where is that photo? Oh, jeez. Where's that photo? How did it just like disorganize all these photos? Well, I had a photo for the Louisiana Tech game, but I guess we don't really need one. LSU are going to win this thing 58-6. And this is going to be the start of a few other games of this season that are, in my opinion, positioned perfectly for LSU in this schedule. This is a gimme game right when LSU need it. Maybe they should start their seasons with these type of games instead of just going against Clemson with a first-time O-line, first-time secondary. Maybe do the reverse, but whatever. 58-6, LSU are going to really, bury Louisiana Tech, get the stat padding going, but also, let this staff be able to kind of sit back and determine who among the fringes of the Tigers roster may be able to step into key roles later on. And then that's when LSU go to, another big game. In the first 3 weeks of the season, LSU will play Clemson week 1, and then freaking Florida in week 3. And that's the game where LSU are going to lose their first game of the season, in our opinion. And this is all down to Billy Napier and his near fetishistic obsession with running the football. And I think LSU are going to lose in a low-scoring, bruising battle. This is going to be a big-time test. And it's our SEC opener at home against a 4-5 team, that beat us last year. And they come in with a quarterback that has like 3 different injuries: an upper body injury, an ankle injury, a hernia injury. Like, he might not even be 100% fit for that game. Not to mention, they have to play South Florida the week before they come to Baton Rouge. And so why am I picking Florida to beat LSU here? I think even though, at home, Brian Kelly's Tigers are going to really want to, hey, we're going to serve this cold dish of vengeance. to Napier, Lagway, and the rest of the Gators from that defeat last year in the Swamp. But even though that defeat kind of cost LSU any chance at the college football playoff once and for all, kind of shut that door, I don't think it's going to happen for another year in a row. I think LSU are going to lose to Florida again this year. And I don't know what it is about these LSU-Florida games. I don't know what it is about these LSU-Florida games, but they are freaking nuts. They are insane. They never work out the way either side thinks they're going to. Thrown shoes, keeping teams alive in the game, So some historic record-breaking performances like Ty Davis Price going for, 287, breaking the single game rushing record. Corey Webster getting 3 picks. Quite often a smattering of all action footballing conquest of the likes, SEC rivalries are made of. This is what the game's about. But I think the 2025 edition will all come down to LSU's ability to stuff or even simply limit Napier's quite obsessive running game philosophies. That's the bread and butter scheme that routinely has hurt at LSU. We gave up 177 yards on the ground in 2023. And then we gave up 210 on the ground in 2022. And last year, we limited them. I think it was 113, 130 or something for once this season. Last season, we had a good game defensively on the ground, but it didn't matter. That team limped, made plays, just dragged it over the line to victory somehow against us. And that was a very bruising loss. I mean, we lost by 11 to Florida. That was nuts. But usually the last few years, it's been 52-35, 45-35. And then you had 27-16 last year. I think Florida is going to be a better squad than they were last season. More experience. They retain a higher rate of players than other SEC programs did, just like LSU. However, much like last season, plenty of those key players are still hurt. DJ Lagway and the Gators coming into the season, they have the most sadistic schedule in college football. And I really think that South Florida game, it might really help LSU actually overcome Florida, depending on how much South Florida makes that a contest and beats up the Gators, who are seemingly injury prone. But regardless of all of the other aspects that might play into LSU's favor, including, as we predicted, a week 1 win over Clemson, this is going to be the first true test for Blake Baker's rushing defense. And Napier's Gators feature a real elite running back tandem with Jaden Baugh, 673 yards, 133 carries, 7 rushing touchdowns last year, and 5.1 per carry. And then you got Jacoby Jackson, 509 yards, 95 attempts, 7 rushing touchdowns as well. And he also averaged over 5 yards per carry, 5.4 per carry. And they're also rushing behind a steady offensive line, which is like one of the only healthy units on the team who've avoided injuries for a few years straight. So this is, for me, I think a lot of people think Clemson is like this huge behemoth that is unstoppable, and how could LSU contend with them? I think the problem with Clemson in week 1, and why I think LSU is going to win that game, is that LSU are actually going to have a better running game, a more cohesive, a more coherent running game than Clemson. And that's going to help out LSU as far as the offensive line play, getting some confidence there, but also when you're talking about stopping the run too defensively, it's going to make, oh wow, we really stuffed Clemson. We're totally fine there. And I think it's going to get exposed by both these guys, Jaden Baugh, Jacoby Jackson. I think they're going to expose us with just how good they are rushing the football. And I think that's going to, beat LSU for the first time this season. They pick up their first loss of the season after starting 2-0. And this is a game I expect where a lot of big passing plays to Chris Hilton Jr. and Barry and Brown, but you cannot finish inside the red zone. And I also predict Jack Pyburn going back to play, against Florida. His old former team, I think he still rises to the occasion, even in defeat. He has a sack, he forces another fumble, and he has 6 tackles. And I think it's just a very wasteful, very just distasteful loss for LSU in this game. Next, it's LSU versus Southeastern, and I think it's a get-right game if you've ever seen one. 52-0, LSU get a shutout. They actually had a shutout in the Matt House era. I actually think it was in the 2023 season, believe it or not. But they've been rare over the last 5-6 years. So this is a big one. LSU 52-0 over Southeastern. A really big moment to stat pad for some guys, gain some big-time confidence, and LSU to really play a complete game. And also for Brian Kelly to maybe rest some guys like Nussmeier, Hilton, Whit Weeks, Harold Perkins, and kind of see who he's really got. How deep does this roster really go? How much are we going to find out about this team in some of these gimme games? I think these gimme games can be so important if you play them right, and I don't think Brian Kelly ever has actually in his LSU tenure. He hasn't utilized these games as well as he could have. There's been some missed opportunities. Shelton Sampson Jr. could have caught 2 touchdowns a year and a half ago, dropped both of those touchdowns that were right in between his hands. There's these moments where Kelly has given guys opportunities to flash in these gimme games, and they just haven't responded. But a lot of the times, it was, winning a Heisman Trophy for Jaden Daniels, letting him put up crazy numbers, was more of importance than figuring out how deep your roster was, how many guys you can trust. And I understand, that was probably all you could glean from 2023 was getting Jaden that Heisman, but there was opportunities Kelly has lost, especially with having a bigger roster than maybe we thought, a better roster than maybe we thought in some respects, but a lot of guys that we'll just never know about because we just never saw what they were capable of. And I think starting with this game against Southeastern, I think you're going to start to see this team really show its true self of like, this is what we are capable of doing. This is the kind of team we can be. A very complete business-like type of win. And I'm sorry, Southeastern. I'm sorry. It's nothing personal. It's nothing personal. I swear to God. Next up, after that, see, now it's Ole Miss. So you can see a little rhythm here. You got Clemson, big game, high stakes, and then you got Louisiana Tech. A little bit off the gas there. And then Florida, ramp the gas up again, and then Southeastern. You can kind of rest a few guys, kind of catch your breath a little bit. And now Ole Miss right after on the heels of Southeastern. The schedule is working perfectly for LSU right here. And even though we've lost a game on the board already, LSU are going to handle Ole Miss in what are usually tricky matchups as of late. They've been a wild freaking orgy of record-breaking offense lately. Disgraceful defensive displays. Dudes flying around. Like, literally looking like the Hunchback of Notre Dame trying to tackle some chicks at some type of, like, hipster bar. Like, it was just, like... These games have been close shootouts and just genuine mayhem over the past 6 years. Just genuine mayhem. Insanity. And Kiffin and Ole Miss, lost far too much quality during the offseason. So I really believe that because of that, LSU win this decisively. Defensively, Pete Golding's group, they could still be better than expected. But they've lost so much, beef and muscle up front along their trenches, and they lost some solid secondary players from this past NFL draft. Walter Nolan, Trey Amos. That's a rare luxury for the typically kind of finesse, porous Ole Miss defense traditionally. And so they have upgraded Ole Miss as far as some of the defenders that they've been bringing in as of the last few years. They have upgraded. They've gotten better there. They defensively were actually good against LSU last year, but this year Kiffin cannot count on sustaining a serious push up front, and that hands a huge advantage to LSU's offense, with Garrett Nussmeier really wanting to rebound from that torrid first three quarters he had versus the Rebels secondary last fall. He had a really bad game, Nussmeier, until he turned it on with a quarter left in that fourth and overtime, and was just unbelievable from then on. But Nuss was having his worst game of the season before then. And I really think a running back tandem like Caden Durham and Caleb Jackson are perfectly primed for success against this matchup against Ole Miss's defense. And then you have, additional help from freshman Harlem Berry, Jawan Johnson. I think there's a lot of options there to really keep Ole Miss guessing and burn them, twist them, absolutely run them into the ground. Ole Miss's junior Suntarine Perkins, he's the one defender who could make life difficult for Nussmeier. He's got incredible edge prowess, versatility. He's good in coverage too. Got really high coverage ratings as well. But he creates just a ton of chaos. If LSU can run the football, though, it takes Suntarine Perkins out of the game. But, if Nuss is forced to drop back time after time, and we're just, Nuss throwing 50 passes a game type of crap again, going into this Ole Miss game, and we repeat it, you're going to have guys like Suntarine Perkins, who has 10.5 sacks last season. He's gonna get some hits on Nussmeier if we do that type of crap. Take advantage of the weak center of these defenses. Take advantage of the speed you've got on the outside in the slot, and absolutely destroy these defenses over the middle. Quick slants, quick little in routes, jet sweeps. Get creative. You've got the weapons. And that's why running the football and keeping a defense guessing, having all these weapons on the outside, all of it is so important. Got a guy like Trey Green that they just know they can't cover. Got a guy like Bauer Sharp that they just don't know what the hell to expect from him play to play. Got a guy like Caden Durham who can really do anything on a football field. I mean, that's when you're going to see LSU start to say, hey, look at us. We lost to Florida, but hey, look at what we're turning into. This is usually a tricky game against Ole Miss. You're going to Oxford on the road in this game and whooping that ass. Belt to ass. I know Austin Simmons is the new quarterback there. And even though Simmons flashed last season versus Georgia, and even though he can call upon a few truly scintillating weapons that Ole Miss has, I think they're going to rack up some threatening big plays, Ole Miss, but I think they're going to fall short inside the red zone, and I think they're going to have some problems deep in their own territory with some turnovers or some penalties, and there's going to be constant battering ram pressure. You're going to really see the best of this edge unit, the best of these defensive tackles I think you're going to see Whit Weeks, Harold Perkins have animalistic performances. I think this is going to be another impressive team defense by LSU against Ole Miss, like we saw last year for the most part. And even this is on the road at Oxford, I understand, but LSU are in a must-win mode. Ole Miss lost way too much on the trenches. LSU gained way too much on the trenches. LSU are going to take home the victory decisively, and that's going to be 2 in a row over Kiffin. And now here's where it gets the first time that LSU have 2 back-to-back games that might be troubling. You play Ole Miss, and now you play South Carolina. And we've got LSU doubling up on South Carolina in this game. Wow. When you got a lot of Lenoris Sellers Heisman picks, and a lot of people saying Lenoris Sellers is the best player in college football, and Lenoris Sellers would have gone for over 200 rushing yards against LSU's defense last year. And maybe he would have. Lenoris Sellers, remember, was knocked out at halftime against LSU. 10 carries, 88 yards, 2 rushing touchdowns. And I understand the bulk of it was off of one play, but he's juking and getting through guys like Whit Weeks to make those plays happen. Harold Perkins. And here's the thing, too. Harold Perkins, Sage Ryan had a big play on him that really whooped him up. And then Braden Swinson had two different sacks on him in the first half. And both those sacks combined with the Sage Ryan, Harold Perkins strip sack completely just screwed Sellers up, knocked him out of the game at halftime. And then LSU proceeded to win by a field goal, 36-33. South Carolina missed the potential game-tying field goal as time expires, and LSU escape that early morning kickoff. Really crazy 36-33 game. LSU are going to win by the same scoreline, 36, but this time they've really limit South Carolina 36-18. I mean, dare I say that LSU can stop a running quarterback? Is that dangerous to say that? Is that blasphemy to say that? Is that crazy to say that? Because it seems like I'm going out on a limb here, right? Am I going out on a limb saying that LSU can stop Lenoris Sellers? That LSU can finally stop running quarterbacks? Because the only way we could stop him last year was knocking his ass out of the game. But think about this. Before we knocked Sellers out of the game, what had been done? Yes, he put up a 17-0 lead. He also had 113 passing yards to go with the 88 rushing yards on 10 carries and 2 rushing touchdowns. He also had thrown an interception, and we forced a fumble. If LSU can actually have an offense that scores off of turnovers, actually cashes in these points, these opportunities to put points on the board, you have a whole different game there. And still, LSU knock them out of the game and then are able to overcome and win anyway. My point is that if LSU can even find a way to limit Sellers, because a lot of the yards that he had too were from one big play, and then he had a few more gashers, but a lot of them were from the bulk of one play. If LSU can limit him where, hey, he's going to just have a few more 3rd and longs than he's used to, LSU are going to get turnovers. Will Lenoris Sellers become the first running quarterback LSU stops in years? The first one we can stop since Lamar Jackson in 2017, I think it was. If someone can name one that they stopped it, but after that, I'll gladly admit to being wrong there, but I can't think of one. And I really think that the Blake Baker's upgrades at safety, at corner, you're going to need those guys to tackle. And you saw Mansour Delane tackling his ass off all through fall camp. I think, AJ Halsey being 200 pounds, but all 222 pounds, but also capable of getting 2 interceptions in a game as well. You got Jack Pyburn, who's really good against the run. Really, he does not break contain, but he can also get sacks on the quarterback. The length and the strength of Gabe Relaford, Pat Payton. You've got so many weapons and so many options in these positions that even if it's not working, surely the whoever you put in there is going to make it work. I think there's enough power, enough pace, enough strength, enough mentality among this defensive group. And we didn't even mention Harold freaking Perkins, who might even be a star, the star position, who's going to be basically a spy on Lenore Sellers all game. We're going to get him to launch a lot of questionable errant passes into some tight coverage. And AJ Halsey, Tamarcus Cooley, and Mansour Delane, all three of those guys combined for 12 interceptions last year, while LSU as an entire defense only had 6. So those guys are going to get some picks this year. You can count on that. And I have no worries over LSU's offense during this game against South Carolina. No worries about the offense in this game. My only concern is simply, can this defense finally stop a running quarterback? And I think, they're not going to be perfect on defense, but they don't have to be. They're going to be greatly helped by Sellers committing multiple turnovers, while he's going to be on the receiving end of a visceral pounding. And LSU are going to take home a major victory thanks to all-world showings by the brothers, Whit Weeks. I just called Whit and West Weeks. And they're going to have a big game alongside Harold Perkins for a large amount of those key stops and game-turning plays, in the box. And then Trey'Dez Green is going to catch 3 touchdowns. And he's going to really help bury the Gamecocks. And LSU, they're going to get out of there with a 36-18 score line. And South Carolina, that's 2 in a row over South Carolina. And now LSU versus Vanderbilt. Well, I think we're going to see that for that image right there of Diego Pavia being absolutely massacred by LSU for yet another season. I think we're going to see 44-14 over Vanderbilt. Diego Pavia and Vanderbilt, it's a great story. And we know his dual threat capabilities can hurt defenses. However, due to LSU facing Lenore Sellers and getting their feet wet, stopping running quarterbacks, Cade Klubnik as well, success and failure against some of those guys, having big plays, getting big plays against them. I think that's going to get LSU ready for this moment. And I expect LSU will overwhelm Vanderbilt in all 3 phases. Buoyed by a special teams touchdown from Xavion Thomas. For the 2nd straight year, he scores the special teams return touchdown. 150 receiving yards courtesy of Nick Anderson. And then LSU's defense get 2 interceptions by Mansour Delane, and Harold Perkins gets another interception, which continues his streak of getting an interception in every single season of his career. Oh my gosh, thank you, Lifting My Cross. Thank you. Lifting My Cross says, great work, Lon. Been listening for years, old friend. Wow. Thank you so much. That really means a lot. I'm not sure who Lifting My Cross is, but thank you so much. You may have changed your username or something recently, but we thank you so much for watching. Bud Elliott says this team should win a title. I agree, buddy. Jennifer London says your prediction article was wild, brah. Well, we're almost getting to the end here, so we're going to get to it because we've got just a few more games, and then we're going to discuss. So LSU win 44-14 over Vanderbilt. They just smother them. Absolutely smother them. And then comes LSU versus Texas A&M, a game that is always tricky, right? This game is always tricky, LSU, Texas A&M. And I think it's going to be a defensive chess match between Blake Baker and Mike Elko's defenses. And I think that's going to be the theme for the 2025 edition of LSU versus Texas A&M. Each defensive unit will really put the clamp down on either offensive attack. And I think you're going to see Davon Keys have a really explosive, electric game, more or less off the bench, pushing for a starter role. And he's going to have a really important part to play in stopping Le'Veon Moss, trying to stop Marcel Reed, trying to stop some of the passing, the intermediate passing. Then you have a big game from Dominic McKinley. And then Pat Payton really helps deliver the pain up front and on the edges. And for the most part, I believe both of these teams, LSU and A&M, are going to cancel each other out with two key factors hanging in the ether. Will LSU be able to stop Marcel Reed after his second half rampage last season and the fact that he's a better player than he was last year? I think so, but Reed is far from the biggest worry. Will Blake Baker's upgraded group also be able to shut down or even limit this incredible A&M backfield? You've got Le'Veon Moss, who everyone in Louisiana remembers him. Le'Veon Moss. Hated to lose him to A&M. Incredible running back. And then out of the state of Texas, Reuben Owens, another five-star freakish running back. Those two routinely ripped LSU for big yardage last year. And don't even get me started on Devin Achane in 2022, going for over 200 yards on us. If you watch the tape from last fall, though, I know we think of Marcel Reed as like Michael Vick or something, but if you actually watch the tape from last year, every big play by Reed's legs was achieved down inside the Tigers' red zone, usually after a turnover or a wasted drive and a poor punt or a terrible special teams play, always putting him with real short yardage. And he was kind of gifted these plays and always catching LSU completely unprepared as they were going into that game to stop a running quarterback. Last year, it was inexcusable. This year, is it inevitable? I think LSU make Reed hesitate because he realizes their speed on the edges and that increased power at safety will be able to get him. They'll be able to reach him. And he's going to take more hits than he did last year. And we're going to make him throw the football a lot more. And I think we're going to attempt to rattle his confidence at any and all moments that we possibly can. And like a lot of games, turnovers will decide this game just as much as stopping Louisiana native Le'Veon Moss or Reuben Owens. I think those are the two big factors. Turnovers, who can score off them, and stopping those two backs for LSU. Because A&M, they killed LSU on the ground over recent years. 247 rushing yards last year on the ground. 247 with three different players eclipsing 62 yards. 4.9 per carry. And 5 total rushing touchdowns. Mostly capitalizing on short yardage and points off turnover opportunities, which really buried LSU last year, right? And I think because of the toll of a key injury, plus a really atypical defensive screw-up late in the game, allowing a really big busted touchdown run. I've got LSU dropping this game to A&M for their second defeat of the season. LSU lose 24-28 in an absolute shocker, an absolute blood festival. This is a game that many are going to look at and say LSU are out of it now. LSU are done. Don't even talk about LSU going to be in the playoff. They're done. And during that entire next bye week, LSU have a long time to think about it and to think about what just happened and to kind of, you're going to hear about Brian Kelly, and there's going to be some situations where LSU are going to switch maybe some positions around and kind of try and find some different methods, some different strategies, maybe some different combinations of players out there, because how deep this team is, maybe we find out one starting combination was good for some part of the season, but now going into November, about to face Alabama with 2 losses on the board now, LSU can't really afford to really, FO, And so with that said, LSU now take on Alabama. And we all know what happened last year. Last year was a disgrace. And I know it scares. I know Alabama, even without Nick Saban, scares a lot. They scare a lot of LSU fans. They scare us from picking the Tigers, especially because Kalen DeBoer's team, very unexpected. We really thought we were going to absolutely kick that team's ass. And they came into Death Valley. Kalen DeBoer's first season, replacing the greatest of all time against the number 1 rival on the road in such an environment, and he silences that environment very quickly. That game began and it ended in an absolutely humiliating, like, I mean, it was so biblical. This beatdown was so biblical. The Tigers, they had to hire a priest to exorcise and cleanse Death Valley. Such was the message sent during last season's quagmire of obliteration. It was a symphony of destruction against LSU, and it was hard to watch. But there's no Jalen Milroe available for Alabama to gash LSU. There's no Terrion Arnold at the back end. And there's no more Dallas cheap shot Turner. Okay. So what type of game are we going to see here? What type of game are we going to see against Alabama in 2025? I think if it comes down to it, Alabama's starting quarterback Ty Simpson simply won't be able to match Garrett Nussmeier play for play. Even with electric weapons like Ryan Williams or Jeremy Bernard on the outside, Ryan Williams could be winning the freaking Biletnikoff if an LSU receiver isn't winning it. I think, Alabama are still going to find ways of making this first Saturday in November an epic temple of college footballing majesty. I believe Alabama has an edge in the running game against us in this game. I think, they're going to be able to challenge us on the ground. I think Ryan Grubb becoming the offensive coordinator for a Kalen DeBoer team once again is going to be a successful partnership. That was the offensive coordinator with DeBoer and Michael Penix at Washington, a team that went to the championship game. Now he has come over to Alabama after, I believe, a year with the Seahawks in the NFL. And he was good with the Seahawks. And I think they're going to really be able to really give LSU's defense the most fits anyone will this season. And in reaction, that means the Tigers have to receive world-class showings from their skill position titans. You're going to have to utilize the speed of Aaron Anderson, Berrien Brown, or Chris Hilton Jr. to really expose Alabama over the middle and on the edges like no other game. This is a game where it is going to be a shootout. It is going to be fast. It's going to be physical. A runaway train of a game. And if you step off for even an instant, Alabama could blow us out of the freaking building. This is on the road at Tuscaloosa. And I think LSU can win this game. But the way they're going to have to do it is they're going to have to survive. They're going to gut it out. But also, they're going to have to out-explosive Alabama. And I think thanks to their quarterback being Ty Simpson this year and not someone else, I think Garrett Nussmeier and company can very well do that. I think, Alabama, they've got a really strong roster top to bottom. I really like their defensive anchors. LT Overton, who's an edge rusher defensive lineman who's going to give LSU hell. And you got Deontay Lawson. But LSU are going to catch Alabama at a very desperate and smarting moment following a couple close losses for themselves. Despite having Ryan Williams, despite having this strong roster of just absolute stars in certain areas, they still have Ty Simpson's inexperience and just kind of tepid mentality and tepid presence, lacking presence at the quarterback position. And that's going to be their undoing in Tuscaloosa. The crowd will not be able to get behind Ty Simpson, and everyone's going to feel it. And then when Garrett Nussmeier gets the football, they're going to get hushed and quiet because they know what's coming. And Garrett Nussmeier is going to put up 481 passing yards against Alabama. Chris Hilton Jr. is going to go for nearly 200 yards. Caden Durham is going to rush for 90 with a really strong contribution for 66 yards from Juwan Johnson. LSU are going to win this shootout. Crazy game. Must win to keep the season alive moment. 45-39 over the Alabama Crimson Tide at Alabama in Tuscaloosa to keep it alive. LSU do it 45-39. And what a rush it will be. Whew, what a crazy moment it will be. And what is coming up next after that? I mean, can LSU possibly recover after a game of that type of visceral, just madcap nature? 7 days later, LSU have to play Arkansas, but guess what? They don't have to travel to Fayetteville this year. They get this come-down game perfectly set up at home for them. Like, this game comes at home right when we need it against Arkansas. They've got Taylon Green, but I don't think it's really going to matter much. I think LSU are going to absolutely batter Arkansas. If I can find my Arkansas photo. 37-17. The photo I had was actually Whit Weeks making that absolute incredible pick. Wonder why it didn't download. But 37-17, I've got LSU beating Arkansas to rebound from that crazy 45-39 week against Alabama. We come home against Arkansas. No surprises. I know Arkansas, they got Taylon Green. He's going to be a first to second round talent. But the Razorbacks are simply going to suffer throughout 2025. And even though the Battle of the Golden Boot is always a good game with twists and turns, it won't be. It'll be very short on drama. and it's going to be very high on LSU pomp and circumstantial fervor. The Tigers are going to collect their most sacks in a single game this season, sacking Talon Green 7 times, and they're going to stuff the stat sheet in all 3 phases. It's going to be producing, a complete game by a team that is finally putting the pieces together. 2 defeats, must win every single game to get in that college football playoff. Likely no chance at an SEC title game, but you can get into the playoff if you can just win out from here. LSU handled business, perhaps the last time LSU plays Arkansas for a while. 37-17 in dominant fashion. And then next up after that, LSU faced Western Kentucky. And, this is following a really rough gauntlet of A&M, Alabama, Arkansas, all in a row. And LSU lost a tough one there to A&M, a really gutty one. And it's been physical, and it's been grueling every game. And then Arkansas, even though it was a good showing, a beatdown by LSU, it's still Arkansas, and it's still physical, and it's still violent, and it's beat down, and it's just, ugh. Western Kentucky is going to be a perfectly scheduled welcome dose of calm waters for all the players, the coaches, and the fan base. Specifically when, playoff goals are still in clear view for Kelly, Nussmeier, and company, and it's right in control, right in their hands. And what follows right after that? LSU go to Norman for their first ever regular season game against Oklahoma. Wow. LSU at Oklahoma in Norman. I wonder if Big Fax is going to be there to raise some hell. I hope, Big Fax, if you're watching this, I hope you're going to show up to Norman and raise some absolute gung-ho hell and represent the Tigers right in the middle of the firestorm. Because this is going to be a very, a lot of people think John Mateer, Oklahoma's John Mateer, could win the Heisman this year. A lot of people think John Mateer is the better quarterback over Garrett Nussmeier. A lot of people think John Mateer could replace Bruce Willis in the next Die Hard relaunch of the franchise. There's a lot of people who hear John Mateer and they think John McClain. I think I might be one of them. There's a lot of people who think John Mateer could run for president. There's a lot of people who think John Mateer, once upon a time, possibly voted for Reagan 3 times. There is whispers, rumors, possible innuendo about John Mateer potentially writing a screenplay with Quentin Tarantino. But for me, the schedule that Oklahoma have put forth for their players, for their team, for their coaches to deal with is on par with Florida, where it's like, is this self-flagellation? Is this sadism of a degree, of a layer that I just cannot fathom? Where Christian Grey looks like child's play? Like, is this something that Jeffrey Epstein would consider? Let's maybe put that as part of the banquet of death tomorrow, Ghislaine. Yes, but mark that down. Like, their schedule is absolutely abhorrent. Brent Venables, Oklahoma, they hire this guy, bring him in from Clemson, and just, what do? They just punish him with one terrible schedule week after week after week. I mean, they play a ridiculous schedule this year. I really do think that Oklahoma are going to be a better team this year than they were last year. I think they're going to have, maybe an easier time in the SEC their second year. But I mean, look at the schedule, okay? They start off against Illinois State, yay, and then immediately Michigan, Auburn, Kent State, Texas. You kind of start slowly building there, but then you got Michigan, Auburn, Texas, at South Carolina, Ole Miss, at Tennessee, at Alabama, Missouri, and then LSU. Like that schedule in the back half, specifically in the middle to back half, from the middle of October, and you could still easily lose one of those games before then. From Texas on, wow, they could lose 4 of those games easily, maybe even 5. Missouri could be a better team than people are expecting, and I expect Missouri to be on the doorstep of potential SEC contention actually this year. But Oklahoma, man, they really just punishing themselves, and I think they'll be a better team this year. And John Mateer is going to be one of the best quarterbacks in the country. Venables' defense will be much improved, and they may pull off a few surprising upsets here or there. I could see that. But with that said, Oklahoma won't stand atop the SEC as prime contenders for me, and the Sooners, they're just not going to trouble the Tigers in this regular season finale. I think now you've got a team in LSU that know they're better than the 2 losses they've suffered, and they really want to make sure of sealing this thing and making sure, like, yeah, we're going to have 2 losses, but we're going to the playoff, baby. 42-27. I don't see any craziness in my crystal ball. LSU take care of business 42-27. And I think Nussmeier and Mateer both rack up a ton of numbers. Barian Brown and Aaron Anderson pile up the yards, the explosive plays, and Caden Durham just continues some sort of iconic ascension that is just like, yeah, baby, that's our running back. And there's just too much nonstop competitive grinding against one devastating opponent after another for this Oklahoma team. By this point, they are going to be worn down to an absolute husk. Like, no matter their ambition, no matter what they could possibly be in contention for, looking at their roster, knowing they're too deep, by the time we get to this game, even if maybe they have 2 losses as well, this is going to be the moment that all the doors, everything just kind of collapses and falls in on itself. I mean, the Sooners will be mired in an atmosphere in Norman that's more like a wake than a home game. And that's going to be despite all the quarterback fireworks and John Mateer possibly getting a New York invite. Because the quarterback who is going to be hoisting the trophy in New York is the one who's walking out of there ultimately with the win. Now, we've got, LSU finished the regular season 10-2. We had LSU losing to Florida in week 3, and then we had them losing to A&M in week 8. Barely beating Alabama, barely beating Clemson. This team scores a lot of points, but they're not as explosive as the 2023 or 2019 offenses. They're not that explosive, but they do have a better defense. What we've been predicting are lower scores that we're holding these opponents to, and that's, I think, the kind of combination we're going to see. So many of you watching the show right now, thank you so much. You're about to get into the postseason freaking picks with us. This is going to be crazy. Let's read some comments real quick first. Sweet Lou, my man, Louis Corona. I mean, the only type of coronavirus I like to get infected with is my man, Sweet Lou. What's up, Sweet Lou? He says this defense is now deep and athletic, but it will be the football instincts of this defense that makes them winners. That has been missing over the last few years. It's been instincts. It's been being able to read the game. It's been, and then also you've seen LSU players be in the right position like last year, but you saw some of those guys just get absolutely physically annihilated. We have that oomph, that strength, that power now at the safety position. And it is in the two deep because you got Toviano, you got Spears coming in off the bench. Halsey, Cooley likely to be that starting tandem. I really love where the safety position is at. And then you have Harold Perkins. Basically, he can be a third safety, a third linebacker. You could play him at nickel literally every single play. Switch him every single play. I mean, you've got such an asset with Harold Perkins. And I think this year, there's a reason we didn't mention his name so much every single game of, he's making all these plays. For one thing, it's a little crazy to like kind of try and predict every single play of every single moment of the season. I think it's kind of just crazy. And I didn't want to get that into the weeds of it all. I didn't want you guys to be overwhelmed by how deep, dive it would be, which we had done before. But also, I it's just going to be so hard to predict because there's going to be so many different guys at LSU that can go off week to week. And a guy like Perkins, I think this year you're going to see him do a lot of subtle things that are going to help this defense be able to activate up front. And you're going to see a lot of guys profiting off of the work of Harold Perkins that maybe the fans don't pay attention to. Maybe people don't go back and watch. But for football junkies, I think you're going to see something beautiful with how they use Whit Weeks and how they use Harold Perkins and how they're being able to use those two off of each other because they're both fast. They both can cover somewhat with Weeks, but definitely with Perkins. You've got so much range between those two. And really, with Perkins, you can use him as a third linebacker on occasion to stuff the front, stuff the box. You can use him as an extra edge guy. It's simply otherworldly. And you got a coordinator like Baker who is creative enough and daring enough to try that stuff. So I think you're going to see a vastly better defense than we've seen in quite some time. So now we go to the postseason. And LSU are going to play University of Utah, Kyle Whittingham's University of Utah in the first round, my alma mater. He's going to face LSU versus Utah. And LSU is one of the lower seeds to Utah. Will be traveling to Utah for this game. And LSU are going to beat Utah 29-17 in a lower scoring game that LSU nevertheless kind of dominates and just kind of grits through and survives. And then in the quarterfinals, LSU and Brian Kelly face his former program, Notre Dame, in a very highly anticipated, very controversial, highly discussed, crazy matchup in a wild quarterfinal playoff. And much to a lot of people's chagrin, Brian Kelly's going to come out on top in dominant fashion, 33-20, rubbing it in the face of Marcus Freeman and advancing from the quarterfinals. LSU are now going to be in the freaking semifinals in the Final Four. Am I losing my mind? Am I sunshine pumping? Am I losing it? What? You tell me. I want to hear your honest opinions as this ends here. LSU will now be in the semifinals versus Penn freaking State. James Franklin's Penn State. And LSU are going to win in 2 overtimes, 26-20. Penn State might as well be choke state. They've never been able to win anything. They've never been able to win in that big moment. James Franklin and his team aren't deserving, aren't going to be good enough to do it again. LSU get to the national championship game. For the first time since 2019, LSU get to the national championship game, the second CFP national championship game appearance in program history. And following 1958, 2003, 2007, 2019, you've got 4 national championship wins, and then you have a 5th national championship game appearance. This will be that 6th national championship game appearance, and it will be against Arch Manning and Texas, who will have just barely edged Kirby Smart's Georgia in the semifinals to get to this point. So LSU, Penn State in one semifinal. LSU gets past Penn State in a gritty double overtime game. And then LSU face off against Arch Manning and Texas in the championship game in Miami. And LSU are your national championships winners in 2025. LSU will win the national championship in 2025, 43-37. They beat Texas in a crazy back and forth game where it looks like LSU are done, and then Nussmeier brings them back from the dead. LSU win this in walk-off style, 43-37. Unreal. Brian Kelly gets his first national championship in a season where he had to win, a season on the hot seat, and he does it just like Ryan Day last year. A coach on the hot seat, able to deliver, getting in with 2 losses and navigating their way to a national championship. LSU win it all. End the season 14-2. And here we have some of our other picks. Our offensive MVP, no surprise. Garrett Nussmeier is going to be your offensive MVP this year. Your defensive MVP, I think it's just got to be no surprise. It's going to be Whit Weeks because of how many freaking tackles, he stuffs the entire stat sheet. He does everything. I think it's going to be obvious. Most rushing yards, Caden Durham. He's going to get over 1,000 yards for the first year as far as rushing yards. His second straight year over 1,000 yards as far as total yards. Most receiving yards. This was close, and I think there's going to be a few guys who are going to be in that 500-plus yards realm. Berrien Brown's going to be the only one of them, I think, to go over 1,000 yards. I think if we have 2,000-yard receivers, it'll be Chris Hilton Jr. with just barely over 1,000. But I'm predicting Berrien Brown to lead the way with 1,110 receiving yards for the most on the team. Chris Hilton Jr. is going to have 11 touchdown catches for the most touchdown catches on LSU's team this year. Having a big, colossal year that really does everything he needed for his draft stock. I mean, really, what a way to end your LSU career after waiting so many years, being in the wilderness, watching Malik Neighbors, watching Brian Thomas Jr., watching Kyron Lacey, all these guys do it. When was my turn? And then Chris Hilton comes out with 11 touchdowns and almost 1,000 yards. Most tackles, Whit Weeks, of course, 155 tackles. He's probably even going to get more than that with the extra games. So I wouldn't even be shocked if he got close to 200 freaking tackles. He's just nuts. And then most sacks. I think it's going to shock some people with the low number. But we got Jack Pyburn with 8. I think there's going to be like 4 or 5 different guys who have like 6 to 8 sacks. I think you're going to have quite a bit of sackage this year. I think you're going to have over 40 sacks this year for the first time in a while. I think it was the most sacks LSU have ever had in a season is 44, I believe. I'm going to have to look that up, make sure, double check that, but I think I'm correct. I think it's 44, and I think that was in 2003, the second national championship season. Or I guess according to Auburn, only the first. Ridiculous. But Jack Pyburn's going to lead the way with sacks with 8. I think that's a little surprising for some people. Most most TFLs, most TIFLs. Harold Perkins has 12.5. Most interceptions, DJ Pickett's going to get 4. I think there's going to be a few guys who get 3. I think you're going to see Mansour Delane have 3. And I think Harold Perkins will have 2. Some guys in there, AJ Halsey with 2. But DJ Pickett, he might not start for this team, but I think whenever he plays, he's going to have an impact, and he's going to get 4 interceptions because people are going to test him. Quarterbacks are just going to think freshman, I'm going to test him, and they're not going to realize just how lengthy he is and just how good he is at making plays on the ball. And then most pass breakups, Mansour Delane with 13 this year. I think it could be a far higher number than 13 as well, just with the extra games. We could be talking about almost 20 pass breakups. So why did I pick LSU to win a national championship? In such a year where you're opening against Clemson, Brian Kelly's on the hot seat, you have all this stuff against you, uncertain offensive line, first year with the secondary. There's so many things that should technically be against LSU winning a national championship this year. Not least of all, just the wide-ranging uncertainty across college football and the fact that you can lose at any time, anywhere, any game, and that LSU maybe have a lot more holes than we think they do. And I think LSU are a greatly imperfect team. Like we've made that very clear. We predicted them to lose 2 games, almost 3, almost 4, and still find a way. Because I think there's a very basic reason that this team is going to win a national championship for me, and why I'm predicting it. And I think it's because this team, these young men, are merchants at finding a way out of adversity. And that's reason number 1. If you want 5 reasons why I picked LSU to win a national championship. Number 1 would be that mentality. All these young men, from Chris Hilton Jr., even to Whit Weeks with his recent injury he just had, to West Weeks having to get a red shirt, being injured all of last year, to Jack Pyburn tearing an ACL at Florida, being a complete afterthought, having to play his way into the lineup at Florida and absolutely dominating. And then when he transferred, those fans went apeshit at him and said some just heinous things. And you're talking about someone who's got through an ACL recovery, dealing with an entire state, his home state, hating him like that, going at him online. Talking about a tough kid. And Jack Pyburn comes here. He's another one who's dealt with that stuff. Garrett Nussmeier losing a close friend like Kyron Lacey in the way he did. Garrett Nussmeier having to wait 4 years for this moment. 3 years for this moment. Starting 2 years. All these different guys on this team. Jacobian Guillory coming off a torn Achilles. Harold Perkins, where's he going to play? What position is this guy even doing? How you got to figure out what Harold Perkins is even going to be on this team. All this stuff. Chris Hilton Jr., all the surgeries he's been through, all the craziness. I mean, it's just, you go through, there's so many different guys who either had to wait their turn, had to be patient, or, like Barry Brown, he had Will Levis as a quarterback. So you instantly just feel for the dude, God. So you've got all these guys here at LSU now. And they all have kind of found in each other like, hey, wow, you had to get through some of the same crap I did. Wow, you're just like me. And they've become very close, instantly a really together team. And because of that togetherness, because of that, in a foxhole, we have to really deliver this season. We have to make it or break it. I think they're really going to have a major chance to do that. I think the only thing that can really stop them from this is injuries, and maybe terrible coaching, because the players on this roster are not going to be the reason LSU don't win a championship this year. I would be shocked if that's what happens. And if that is what happens, then it further exemplifies how bad the coaching is. And I think when you see it, you've got why LSU will win a national championship this year, and why I'm predicting that make or break mentality and the reality of so many of these guys have to make it this season to really have like a shot at the NFL. A guy like West Weeks, or even like Harold Perkins, man, he could be falling to like a 5th or 6th round pick if he has another bad year, another year where they can't figure out his position, another injury marred season. Jacobian Guillory, he was supposed to be a starter for three different seasons at LSU. Only was starting for one, was looking good, and then tears his Achilles 2 games into it. There's been guys on this team who've been through a lot of craziness as far as just things that they really had to get through and things that they really had to navigate. And I think that's what's going to make this team be able to navigate through the ups and downs and wild topsy-turvy moments of the season. The question is, can the coaching staff follow with them and adjust and change on the fly and adopt and evolve like the players will be able to? Will the coaches be capable of that? Reason number 2 I picked LSU to win a national title this year, I think, is probably the most important. The schedule works out for LSU so beautifully. I mean, every time there was a tough game, there's a game to fall back on. Like, let me just go through it right here. Let's just go through it to just kind of show you. Open against number 4 Clemson, at Clemson. The next week, it's home against Louisiana Tech. And then it's home against Florida. After that, it's home against Southeastern Louisiana. And then at Ole Miss, rough, crazy, sticky situation on the road. Next week, home against South Carolina. Tough game, but you're at least at home. After that, at Vanderbilt. SEC game, you should win that game. That's in between your trip to A&M, which we predicted to be a tough game that LSU actually lose. November, and then right after A&M, you have a bye for November 2nd, November 1st games. You have a complete bye. So you get that bye week right then after that A&M game, in between the Alabama game. And then it's at Alabama, and then next up, home against Arkansas. after that, which, that's a pretty rough gauntlet, those three. That's the roughest consecutive gauntlet of the season. A&M, Alabama, Arkansas. And it still breaks your way for the most part, schedule-wise. And then you got Western Kentucky at home against Arkansas. You got Western Kentucky, another game at home. And then on the road in Norman to finish off the season, which could be tricky if Oklahoma end up actually to be good. This schedule, outside of opening week 1 on the road at the 4th best team in the country, this schedule is perfectly tailored for LSU to win a national championship this year. I don't know how anyone could say otherwise. You have one opportunity after another to rest guys, to bleed new talent into a lineup, to potentially make adjustments on the fly. You have all these gimme games. Western Kentucky, Vanderbilt will throw into that one. Southeastern Louisiana Tech. And then you should beat South Carolina. You should beat Arkansas. This is a really, everyone's going to give us points for scheduling at Clemson, the home and away series. But sneakily, even though people are thinking this LSU are, playing such a terrible schedule, sneakily, this schedule is the first time in years we've had a schedule that actually helps the team. And I love it. Simply put, LSU should be healthier in November. They should be fitter. They should be faster. They should be ready to go by that time that Texas A&M, Alabama, Arkansas stretch comes in a row. LSU should be fit and firing and already in a dominant position. This is a roster. This is a staff. This is a schedule that all go in an alignment here where even if we lose to Clemson in the first few weeks or lose to Florida in the first few weeks, it doesn't mean a damn thing. Even if you lose 2 games, you can get in the playoffs and you can go on a run with this type of team, with this type of roster, this type of staff, this type of group, with this mentality. There's destiny vibes. There's destiny vibes. But mostly, I want to make this very clear, because I never want to be accused of this ever. And I want to kind of just say it very straight up. This pick, more than any pick, is a vote for Brian Kelly. Like, this is a vote for, hey, Brian Kelly, we're going to support you. This is a very important season. We want you to be successful. I want you to win. I want you to win a national championship. I'm predicting that you win a national championship. I'm calling for it. I'm saying it's going to happen. And so now I can't be accused of, hey, you don't like Brian Kelly. Hey, you wanted him to fail. No, we've predicted this because we want this to be a success. We want Brian Kelly to take that next step with this program. We want him to wear that ring on his finger and win a national championship at LSU. This is a roster that should win a national championship at LSU. I think we've been listening way too much to the national people who don't know a damn thing about this team, who mix up photos of John Emery Jr. and call John Emery Jr. Harold Perkins. They don't even know who the hell our star players look like. And we're going to listen to what they think about LSU. I understand LSU could lose to Clemson. We could show our ass against Clemson. But that wouldn't even matter. If LSU can go on a run And even if they lose 2 games, if they can get in the playoffs, this team will win a national championship. They're built for it. The offensive line might not be ready for it, but you can scheme around the offensive line. I know it sounds insane. You can do it. You can make the offensive line a casual observer with a quick striking, over the middle, high flying, passing offense, air raid type of offensive passing attack. And LSU should do that until they establish a physical, imposing, grinding running game. Wear down the defense with all these death of 1,000 cuts with the ball in the air, and then start running the football. These delayed gives, these counter, these plays that really get the defensive front thinking, oh, he's dropping back for another quick pass. Oh God. And then they give that little bit of a cushion, and boom, you've got 5-6 yards with it just in a snap. That's the type of offense that we can have: a patient possession, control the clock, score in the red zone, bury this team, cash in, I don't care how you do it type of offense. You have a weapon down there like Trey Green. You don't even have to run the football. You don't even that dude is automatic. I don't want to hear excuses of, well, you can't just throw to Trey Green. What if they double coverage him? What if they triple coverage him? What if they, okay. Someone else is going to be open. Or, hey, still throw it up. Until he can't make a play in the red zone for once, keep giving it to him. This team has no excuses to fall on their face this year. This team have no excuses to not go on a deep run in the playoffs. Not just a benchmark of making the playoffs. I expect a lot more out of LSU. This is a team that should be going on a deep run, competing for a championship every single damn year. And that's why, this is the first time we've predicted LSU to win a national championship since 2019. Let me say that again. This is the first time we have predicted LSU to win a national championship since 2019. There's a feeling about this team for me that gives me a type of, there's a destiny vibe here. There is a destiny vibe. And no, I'm not talking about the liberal bisexual commentator. I'm talking about an actual destiny here. This is you just feel like there's something here, that this is a mission. I'm not saying like LSU are entitled to winning this thing or what. I'm not trying to be like, yes, there's a lot of great other teams. There's a lot of great other quarterbacks, a lot of great rosters, a lot of great coaches in college football. LSU are far from being the only one. But there's a feeling I have about this team that cannot be denied. And I could not deny it. I wanted LSU to lose in the semifinals against Texas. I was going to have LSU play Texas in the semifinals. And LSU lose 37-43 in the semifinals. And I made the pick. Okay. And I went to sleep. And I was like, okay, I'm going to post this. I was like, no, you got just sleep on it. I slept on it, and literally in the middle of the night, woke up. My son was upset in his room. Mama, Dada, And so I ran in there, picked him up, was holding him for a sec. Could feel that he was completely covered in piss. And just as I could feel and smell the intoxicating aroma of death that is melting urine all over your body as your son continues to suddenly pee all over you, while you're standing there, just right there. You're just you I've got you. Your comfort. Oh yeah. Oh wow. You're covered in pee, and now here comes even more. Literally, like the song "Silver Springs" by Fleetwood Mac's. It just exploded in my pocket. Just it was unbelievable. Thank God my phone wasn't in the pocket at the time. Wow, a pocket of piss, a piss phone. Everything would have blown up. Obviously, got Seiji changed, and he was completely out the whole time. Got him into some new clothes, got him back into, just put him into our bed, and just, hey, let's go to sleep. This has gone on long enough. Let's go to bed. And right when I'm about to lay my head down again, I just had the most random thought out of nowhere of LSU are going to beat Texas in the championship game, you fool. It's not LSU lose to Texas in the semifinals. LSU don't lose to Texas, dickhead. Like, I was like, you picked LSU to lose to Texas? Man, what are you? What, you're a dick. Like, I was like accosting myself, like, what did you do? You literally picked them to lose at Texas? And I gotta say, that's why I ultimately picked LSU to win the national championship, guys, gals, everyone who's listening. I couldn't see or really feel comfortable picking Penn State to beat LSU in a winner take all playoff game just because some other people might be high on Penn State. I watched that team, and yeah, they've got a great roster. They've got a good team. James Franklin is a terrible person to play for. That's why that team always collapsed in the final moments. And I couldn't really think, oh, Penn State are going to beat LSU. Penn State, yeah, they're a better team than LSU. Maybe they'll be lucky in a showdown against LSU and beating them. This is not LSU the last few years. This is an actual LSU team, an actual worthy LSU roster. LSU don't lose to Penn State in playoff games, in winner take all games, in bowl games. LSU don't lose to a team like Texas in these type of games. This isn't pride. This is fact. And I'm not saying LSU is better than all these teams, and none of these programs can ever evolve from what they once were. You saw Ole Miss have a better defensive front than LSU had last year. When's the last time you could say that? So my point is that I see some real uncertainty across college football where there could be a lot of great teams. There could also just be a lot of cannibalism within the SEC and within the wider college football spectrum where great teams just fall left, right, and center because of these games where it's just tough opponents, tough games. You think that this team's in the ascendancy and then they get taken down again. You think that, oh, now this team's in the ascendancy, they get taken down. It's going to be like that. Tic-tac-toe, tag, you're it, you're out, tag, you're it, you're out, you're done. I really think you're going to see a wild shifting of different programs rising and falling this year. And it's really going to be who doesn't fall at the last hurdle and who doesn't who's the last to take a bite out of the others, really. And I think that's going to be LSU right when it matters most. I think LSU, by virtue of having 2 losses, they won't have to play in an SEC title game, which I think will help them. I think they, at every scheduling point except for at Oklahoma, at Alabama, everything else favors them. Obviously at Clemson, I guess, obviously. But besides that, everything else in this schedule favors them. And this is a vote for Brian Kelly to be successful and to really steer this team in the right way. Because here's the thing. If Brian Kelly cannot deliver with this team, and I'm not meaning just he's got to automatically win a title. I'm saying at least come close. At least have this team make a good run for it. If we can't at least have that, then I don't know if this is the right place for Brian Kelly. And this is someone who's wanting him to succeed. I'm literally predicting. I'm literally putting my nuts on the line here, predicting Brian Kelly to overcome decades of criticism and mass hatred his way to win something. And yet there's people within LSU's organization who still think I hate Brian Kelly. It's like I didn't see anybody else in the media talk to their coach sources, friends, to see if Kelly visited Greg Brooks Jr. or not and put that out there. We did. We're cheering for Kelly to be able to cross that Rubicon here. Am I crazy for predicting LSU to win a national championship? Do they have the team to do it? Is this a schedule that they're, able to really get through here? Can they stop a running quarterback? Will, young guns like DJ Pickett actually be given an opportunity to impact this team? Can LSU stop the running game of teams like Alabama, Texas A&M? Ugly, awful, annoying teams that nevertheless, year upon year, hurt LSU. I want to know your opinions. I want to know what you think about all of this right now as I celebrate this show with a fruit by the foot. Wow. Over 2 hours and 14 minutes of that. Sorry, guys. Wow, that was a lot of talking. But I hope you enjoy that because I wanted to show, hey, here's the article version of it, and now we're doing a video audio version of it for people who don't necessarily have the time to read our stuff. And I really wanted to give everybody the best of both worlds and try and, someone gave me this idea a while back, like, hey, you should record yourself read it. And I'm like, well, that's like me reading off a script. I can't really do that. It's kind of weird. And it's like bullshit. I can read from a script and I can actually make it 10 times better. And what we did with this was, if you have read our article, you know that we didn't quite read from it verbatim, obviously. But we threw it enough in there that I think people can read the article and get a lot more out of it, can watch this, get more out of it. Best of both worlds for both. What a season this is going to be. I think we're probably delusional picking this. Maybe we are sunshine pumpers. Maybe we finally did become a sunshine pumper with this pick. But I just think that there is so much talent in the right places on this team. I mean, look at you. You won 9 and you won 10 games the last few years with seriously incomplete units on your team. You return a lot of these same players in these key positions, these key producing guys, but now you add all these like top 5 superstars all over the place to this team, defensively, offensively. How could you not get better? And then what does that mean? So that means you win 12 games. That means you win 11 games. Well, shit, you win 11 or 12 games. You're going to probably be in that Final Four. But LSU winning 10, losing 2, not having to play that extra game in the SEC championship game, I think that actually helps them. And I think you're going to see that bear itself out. I think this schedule in every way, shape, or form is going to help the Tigers. I think it's going to really be mind-blowing to people this year. Like, whoa, LSU have like a gimme game almost after every one of these games. Like, they have the opportunity to recover. This is crazy. This is really beneficial. And I just think there's a lot of sense to what we're saying. I think there's a lot of sense to the way I'm seeing it. Could injuries, could some really bad coaching, could unforeseen disasters of all the above change all this? Of course. We're knocking on wood there. When you're talking about injuries to key players all over the field, obviously you're talking about a season that's going to be changing. But LSU have been healthy for the most part, except for the tendonitis that Nuss has got, and the really weird knee issue that Aaron Anderson has. Oh, and Jakeem Jackson. Jakeem Jackson also had a hamstring issue, but he should be good to scrimmage tonight, actually. That scrimmage should be starting soon. And hopefully our information should be piling in here pretty soon after. We're going to be talking to a few people who are going to be in attendance for that scrimmage. And are going to be trying to feed us as much information as they can possibly send to us, even though I think the rules are they're not allowed to be on their phone during the scrimmage. So a lot of it's going to be stuff they're going to have to like take photos of their notebook and their scribbled handwriting and send it to me later. Any questions, anybody? Anything anybody wants to say before we sign off here? I mean, this has been quite a long show, and I love it. I love it. We're not wanting to talk people's ears off, but my God, I think I could talk this 2025 team from today for the next 7 days if we had, work off and had nothing in the way. No Sage walking up saying, "Hey, Dada, what you doing? You're talking to some crazy screen? Play with me." Let's do some comments. Lifting My Cross says SEC teams figured Marcel Reed out quick after they caught LSU with their pants down. Yes, that's the true thing. And that's why I said even if he's gotten better, because, yeah, maybe he's gotten better and they've said, hey, Marcel, they figured you out. We got to do this and this and this to make you a better quarterback. I don't think he has enough. I think he's got very limited skill range. And I think LSU, yeah, we got really exposed bad in those games as a defense, and it was mostly, like we said, Marcel Reed was gifted a ton of short yardage situations off of turnovers, all the momentum, everything going in their way, the crowd surging, like pretty much the exact position you want to be in when you're calling those first plays, walking into a game fresh, right off the bench. Everyone wants you to be the quarterback. Everyone wants you to lead this team. They don't want the other guy in. Your teammates are literally like, come on, come win this shit for us. Come on. Just have a few quarterback keepers and just burn this team. LSU were not ready for it whatsoever and paid the ultimate price. You watch the first half of that game. You could not have played a better first half on the road if you're LSU. I mean, they destroyed Connor Wegman. Bullied him. Took the football away from him. We really... And we also, Aaron Anderson, a 70-yard touchdown catch. There's so many explosive plays, and it seemed like we were starting to get something going with the run. And we're starting to get control of the football. And then a turnover later, an injury later to Garrett Dellinger, and everything is done. Everything is done. Goes from that interception to that red zone touchdown to now they can stuff everything we try and do. Quick 3-and-outs, terrible drives, terrible special teams. They're inside the 20. They're inside the 15 again. Boom. Now you're staring down a double-digit lead. Like, it was that quick. It was like Vietnam flashbacks. I mean, like, holy shit. And before you think that's a distasteful joke, I will remind you my father was a combat Vietnam veteran. So I actually have a very, very deep knowledge of what flashbacks and Vietnam-induced mental illness and the like have on a person. We have a very intimate knowledge of that from a young age. And it's not pretty. That war, one of the worst things this country ever did because of what it did to those young men. Holy crap, the stuff that they had to do, stuff they were ordered to do, stuff they saw happen. Jesus. And that's Texas A&M. Every time you play them, it's like you're having to take on Vietnam, go back in the jungles. But like you said, the reason I picked LSU to win over A&M, what did I pick? I have us losing to A&M 24-28. It was Sellers. I'm mixing him up with Sellers now. I was starting to go on the Sellers rant. I have us figuring out Sellers, right? And I have us sort of figuring out Marcel Reed and limiting him. The reason we lose to A&M, the reason I picked us to lose to A&M as one of our two losses is nothing to do with Marcel Reed. It has everything to do with Le'Veon Moss, Reuben Owens, and that running back room catching LSU at a moment where they have just exhausted, catching that defensive front where they're maybe a little beat up, and maybe a key injury happens in that game that kind of frees it all up. That's why we have LSU losing it to A&M in one of these games. It's not necessarily Marcel Reed is Michael Vick and he's going to torch us again. That's I think if people want to say that, they haven't really watched these games and they're just kind of like, Marcel Reed killed LSU. Marcel Reed. It's like, did you watch the highlights? Well, Christ, like maybe go back and actually watch the game. Because, I mean, that's the thing too, is you guys sometimes, I'm not sure if you guys are echoing some of the things I'm saying, but some of the stuff we clearly went out of our way to say, like that Marcel Reed was figured out and that Marcel Reed was only really dynamic or successful against LSU because of being in short yardage and being in highly advantageous situations. But we'll just do what we can, make sure we can communicate things as best as possible. Because you guys are awesome, and you guys really, I appreciate you guys watching us and giving us your time. It's pretty incredible. Lifting my cross says an aggressive D-line will cause havoc on a mobile quarterback. South Carolina used their D-line to crush A&M. Yes, but I really do think we're going to lose to Texas A&M. I really do. That's not me saying Texas A&M are going to have a good team this year even. That's not me saying Texas A&M are a great team or Texas A&M are better than LSU or anything like that. That's me simply saying this is the SEC. It gets weird, and sometimes weird shit happens. And LSU A&M, it's an annoying game usually, just like LSU Arkansas, because there's frankly a lot of times where the team that didn't deserve to win won. And in ugly, ugly, ugly fashion, usually as well. And so, usually these aren't very aesthetically pleasing games to watch either. So that's another reason why I picked LSU to lose to A&M is more of just, it's just a game where we get caught. And same with Florida, why I picked us to lose against Florida. I actually my original predictions, I actually had LSU losing to Clemson 38-34 and then losing to Florida too. My original predictions, lifting my cross, was literally that LSU were going to lose 2 of their first 3 games and then win out to this 10-2 spot and then lose in the semifinals. That was my original pick, was that LSU would lose to Clemson, lose to Florida in the first 3 weeks, and then somehow rebound and make that happen. But I looked it up. It was like 0.6% of teams that lost 2 of their first 3 games got to like a 9 or 10 win season. It was a very low amount. And it was actually a lower amount than I expected of teams who even lost 1 of their first 3. I mean, if you lose 1 of your first 3, it was almost like half of the teams are out now, kind of a thing. Now you're wanting to look at, can they at least hit that 9-3, 10-2 threshold and be in the conversation to get in the playoff after losing 2 of the first 3 games. And it was like just completely impossible statistically for LSU in the position they were in to lose those 2 of those first 3 and still make the playoff. Even though that was what I predicted and felt in my heart was going to happen, is that we would lose to Clemson and Florida. I felt like it would be extremely unrealistic to predict all these outcomes at once, all these extremes. So LSU survived Clemson. Survive. not throttle, not even beat, but survive Clemson 38-34. A very sloppy game that we somehow get a pretty big lead in, and it gets wrestled back out of our hands, and then somehow we make a play and then get a stop, and it was over. And Clemson are like, holy shit, well, we got all these pancake, cupcake, easy cake games coming up all throughout the ACC schedule. Sweet. Like LSU, meanwhile, lose to Clemson, and you're really looking down the barrel of a gun the rest of the way. I felt like psychologically LSU would be incapable of having a semifinals championship game, championship season if they lost 2 of the first 3, specifically to Clemson. LSU Hyper Ninja 9. What's up, brother? He says, if LSU can prove the doubters wrong, everyone picking against us gives us so much momentum. Hopefully LSU wins the opener. Well, I mean, LSU Hyper Ninja 9, my brother. So glad that you're watching. So glad that you joined us. You've really been watching our stuff like crazy lately, and I just want to say thank you. It really means a lot to me. We are trying to build this up to what we're doing and make it really something that LSU fans can start a community around. There's a lot of different cliquey communities within the LSU fan base. I want to kind of create a centralized hub for LSU fans. The On3 forum has a lot of great fans there, and that's kind of getting centralized in that way. I'd like to do something of our own like that. And so thank you for joining us. But what you're saying is very interesting to me because LSU and doubters and LSU and what people are predicting for the Tigers this season, does that ever have any bearing on how you see the season? I'm not trying to be like rude or say like people can't think for themselves, blah 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 blah, or people are easily swindled or swayed by media people's opinions. But I'm just simply asking you that question: Is your opinion of LSU this season, is it swayed by, say, like Todd McShay saying something, or Greg McElroy saying something, or Jake Crane saying something, or Josh Pate saying something, or Paul Feinbaum? Does their preseason opinion, when they're having to study so many different teams, cover so many things, everything is very surface for some of these guys. There's Josh Pate, Jake Crane, those guys go deep dive. So those guys are not included in surface level stuff, but maybe more ESPN. But for me, well, why does that go to that? Why did that go to that one? I just suddenly put that comment up. For me, the doubting for LSU is really all about these analysts see all these other teams, all these other sexy, shiny toys. They got John Mateer, Oklahoma. Ooh, what a brand, Oklahoma. And then Clemson, Dabo Swinney, he's already got rings. That's a safe bet. Ooh, ah. And, they're kind of going through the entire list of, Ohio State, blue blood, yeah. Or they're like, oh, Kansas State, that's my dark horse, yeah. There's a lot of people right now picking these games are kind of following each other's lead, and kind of like a lot of them have the same kind of brackets, just kind of inverted. You see the same Clemson, Texas, maybe Georgia on the outskirts, but it's like Clemson, Texas. Who else is a big time national championship pick? That's the thing, is that the national championship pick, Ohio State, a few of these other teams, it's kind of all over the place. But as far as the teams that are in it, that are being predicted to be in it at the end, it's kind of the same rotating cast. And LSU usually aren't in it. Usually, I'd say probably 8 out of 10 brackets I've seen from media members, LSU are not to be found. I think that's patently ridiculous. LSU could lose 2-3 games. Yes. And LSU might not make the playoff. Yes. I think it's absolutely ridiculous that at such a propensity, people pick against LSU. I think it's almost, we hate LSU, we don't want them to succeed or something. Like, I don't know what it is, but LSU never get love preseason. So that type of stuff does not really move me. That type of stuff has never really moved the needle with me at all. It's always been something oh yeah, even though we're a top 5 team, we're going to be put in number 20. That's how LSU has always been screwed with. And yes, they gave us a number 9 ranking this season, preseason, when we know this is a top 5 team. So I think a lot of this hatred for LSU is just a lot of this doubting for LSU is just pure hatred, where it's just, I hate the Tigers, don't want them to be successful, I'm not interested in them being around. I don't even have them on the bracket, even though they have the best quarterback in the country. Not even going to look at it. I'm going to talk about guys that we've never seen play or be successful before, like Austin Simmons and John Mateer. We're going to say all these guys are going to be elite over a guy like Garrett Nussmeier, who's been in every single situation for a college quarterback except for playing in a national championship game. Everything else he's pretty much done. Like, he's lost in every single conceivable way. He's won in every single. It's crazy the amount of experience he has and the amount of production he has, considering how little LSU are being favored or tipped for any success this season. LSU are expected by the vast majority of everyone who watches college football to be winning 8-9 games this year. Brian Kelly gets fired and sent packing. Nothing to see here. Goodbye. That's what people are picking for LSU this year. I, on the other hand, think there is way more to it here. And if there isn't way more to it here, and if everyone else is right, LSU are a 9-3, 8-4 type of team this year. This current coaching staff cannot continue. As star-studded, as highly paid as they are, certain names will have to go. And sadly, another rebuild will have to take place. But that's what will have to happen if we can't seize on this moment at LSU, where everything is aligned, everything is ready, all the ducks lined up in a row. And now it's really up to Nuss to just hit them. Wild and true, just hit them. Each one. Boom, 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 boom. It's going to be a crazy season, everybody. 7 days. 7 days left. 7 days. 7 days. And LSU kicks off at Clemson. We'll be talking to you many times until then. You've got all of our crazy, thorough LSU prediction articles for both Clemson and for the entire season. You've got these shows, and we're going to be providing you with even more. We're going to have some sick, nasty interviews this week leading up to the game. Stay tuned for that. We are going to deliver. Thank you so much for joining us for this afternoon show. College football is back. LSU football is right around the corner. And don't it feel good, baby? Thank you all for watching. There's so many of you watching. You make me feel really humbled and blessed. I have a great life. I have a great family. I love my family. I love everything about my life being. I get to wake up and be an LSU Tiger. I get to wake up and cover my favorite team. I have a place. I have cars. I have food in the fridge. We have a TV. We have all this crazy stuff. Sage has all these toys. I mean, we got a little girl on the way as well. I'm a blessed man. I've got great friends as well. Friends like Harold Hibbard who will send me LSU Tiger shoes out of nowhere with such a surprise. Craziness. The gifts, man. Like, thank you so much. It means so much to have people even think of you like that. It's nuts. I'm a blessed man, and I thank you all so much for watching and for hanging out with us and taking part in what was quite the undertaking over the last week, finalizing all this stuff and cobbling all of this written stuff together. The article is there. I really hope you guys read the article. I think it was just as good as the podcast. Maybe more information, maybe more cohesion on our thinking. Maybe less humor. Anyway, Amacat1, my brother, what you doing, man? You watching? Thank you so much, brother. Go Tigers 504 is in the house. He says, go Tigers. Yes, brother. Everybody, have an amazing Saturday night, and we'll be talking to you most likely tomorrow with another show. Have a good one, guys.